And for more on this and the run-up to the big Super Tuesday primary, now just 3 days away, let's go back to Washington and CBS News political director John Dickerson. Great to have you with us, John. Good morning.
Good morning, Rebecca.
So how are Limbaugh's comments going to play with the GOP? Is it going to become a problem for them?
Well, in terms of the Republican primary, it probably won't. The Republicans, nobody's going to bring it up within that Republican contest. In fact, it will hurt them more if they kind of lash out against Rush Limbaugh, which is why Mitt Romney only said about these remarks that they weren't the words that he would have chosen, which is a pretty timid response. This could, in the general election context, if it bubbles up again, there's a chance that it might come back and be a problem for the Republicans. But it has to kind of come up again organically or through one of these pieces of legislation for this debate over the underlying question here about contraception to be a problem for Republicans.
That does seem likely, however, John, doesn't it, that it would continue to be a part of the debate, and with female voters, which seem to be generally in favor of this, according to Nancy Cordes' report, it could be an issue in the general election.
Absolutely. The question, though, is whether how it comes up. If there's more legislation like what's been discussed here, then it's kind of organic. The president took his moment, seized the moment here as a political move to take advantage of this. But imagine several months from now, if it's not coming up organically, then the president presumably would have to talk about it to beat up on the Republican candidate. That's certainly quite possible when it's talked about in terms of contraception. He's on the right side of this. But remember, several weeks ago, when it was thought of and discussed in terms of a religious liberty issue, the White House was actually on the defensive. It's a little tricky here. And also, again, anybody who brings it up out of context, it can be accused by, or independent voters will look at them and say, wait a minute, why are you talking about this issue when we've got the economy and other things you should be talking about?
And feeling like it's just politics again, that they're playing games. I want to talk about the GOP contenders going into Super Tuesday. You have Mitt Romney, who's won both Michigan as well as Arizona, but it was a tight race, and it's looking tight going into the polls for Ohio as well as the Washington caucuses today. So what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, the Washington caucuses are interesting. They're very hard to poll. Anything could happen there. We've seen in this race that if you win one contest, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the next one. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens in Washington. Ohio is the biggest state on Super Tuesday. You've got those 10 states competing all across the country. It's a big state because it's a swing state in the general election, and it's one in which there's a real test between Mitt Romney and those who are Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, and it's a test of whether Mitt Romney can really put together a coalition and make himself the nominee.
Plus, you have a third of voters who say they're open to change. They're open to thinking differently about this come Election Day. What does that say about the candidates they have before them?
We've seen this in lots of states. The voters in the Republican primaries are sloshing all over the place, running from one character to another. The polls have shown almost over 10 different people have been at the top of the polls in this race. It shows an unsettled field. What we saw in Michigan is that there's a real split that we've seen across the country between those people who want to elect somebody who they think can beat Barack Obama, that's Mitt Romney, or somebody who really speaks to them in their heart, who shares their values, who is a true conservative, as voters say. And that in Michigan was Rick Santorum. Previously, it's been Newt Gingrich, and even before that, it was Herman Cain.
All right, John Dickerson, thank you. We appreciate it.